Chapter 4. I hate him because he isn't like me. The whisper of grass and the crisp white shirt. The July sun in this suburb always carried a particular ferocity, as if the sky itself was unleashing its full fury upon the earth. Today, that intensity was amplified, scorching everything in its path. Heat shimmered off the asphalt and concrete, creating a suffocating, dense air that hung heavy. The air smelled of dry earth and sun-baked leaves. After a week of relentless rain, the grass in the yard had shot up, an unnaturally vibrant green. It wasn't fresh green, but the wild, untamed green of a challenge waiting to be conquered. The lawnmower's roar tore through the mid-afternoon quiet. It wasn't just a sound. It was the angry growl of a mechanical beast, slowly, laboriously devouring every inch of grass. Alex, wrestling the heavy machine, felt every muscle in his arm scream. Sweat poured off him, soaking through his old gray t-shirt, making it cling to his skin. The shirt had darkened to a deep, wet charcoal, and Alex could feel the heat radiating from his own body. His protective gloves were now clammy with perspiration, slick and sticky. Green sap, mixed with dirt and grass clippings, clung to every crease of his skin, every knuckle. Though he wore safety glasses, the blinding glare still pierced through. His head reeled, not just from the sun and exertion, but from the incessant, deafening thrum of the engine. It was like a hammer pounding relentlessly against his temples, blurring his thoughts. Only the stark focus on each cut remained. He felt like an extension of the machine, a living mechanism being drained under the relentless sun. Every finished square foot of grass offered fleeting relief, yet ahead lay an endless, seemingly boundless sea of green. Then, just as Alex felt his body could take no more, a figure appeared on the patio. It was Mr. Harrison. Alex didn't need to see clearly. He simply sensed the presence, a presence all too familiar and utterly loathsome. Mr. Harrison was, as always, immaculate. A crisp white shirt, ironed to perfection, every seam sharp, not a single wrinkle. The sleeves were neatly folded up to his elbows, revealing slender wrists and a glint of silver from his watch. His dark trousers were equally pristine, perfectly creased, and fitted without a single ripple. He was in no hurry, showed no sign of being busy. Each step was slow, deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world to savor this summer afternoon. He didn't squint against the glaring sun. His eyes remained wide, seemingly impervious to the harshness of the weather. Only his gaze moved, slowly sweeping across the lawn. A measured, unhurried look, devoid of emotion. His eyes glided over Alex, over the growling lawnmower, and over the neatly trimmed sections of grass. Then they paused on the wilder patches, and then a slight nod, just a subtle dip of his head. It was as if everything unfolding before him was precisely as it should be, exactly as he had expected, a preordained plan requiring no effort on his part. Alex watched him, a bitter taste rising in his throat. That look again, the way Mr. Harrison appeared, as if this lawn weren't a muddy, overgrown patch, but a grand hall, and he, the sole orator, delivering a silent speech with his gaze. While Alex wrestled with every foot of ground, with every stubborn blade of grass, with sweat, dirt, and noise, Mr. Harrison emerged as if the world held no clamor, no exhaustion. He was the embodiment of effortless elegance, utterly contrasting Alex. I swear he wears that on purpose, Alex thought, his internal voice laced with sarcasm. He knows he'll stand out against the lawn, knows I'll notice, knows I'll fume, A surge of anger erupted within Alex, not just because of the stark contrast, but because of the feeling of being deliberately provoked. He gritted his teeth, tightening his grip on the lawnmower. It felt as though Mr. Harrison was intentionally flaunting his perfection to overshadow Alex's struggle, his fatigue. He hated the way Mr. Harrison always maintained that composed, refined air, the way he always seemed to be one up on Alex. The feeling of being dismissed, of being undervalued, swelled in Alex's chest, making him want to throw the lawnmower down and scream. 2. I work, he watches, and I hate IT. The next day, and the day after that, Mr. Harrison maintained his irritating routine. Punctually, precisely at the peak of the sun's ascent, he would step out onto his patio. Like a living clock, he was precise to the minute. His appearance was utterly silent. Just a tall, slender figure, clad in his familiar crisp white shirt, slowly emerging from the slightly ajar door. Alex didn't need a watch. He merely had to sense that presence to know it was midday. He said nothing. Not a greeting, not a word of encouragement, not even a sigh. He didn't carry himself with an air of authority, nor did he specifically inspect anything. He didn't bend down to touch the freshly cut grass, didn't walk around to scrutinize hidden corners, nor did he offer a single comment. He simply stood there, hands loosely at his sides or casually tucked into his dark dress trousers. His gaze slowly swept across the entire lawn, and then, more deliberately, settled on Alex. It wasn't an intrusive stare, but neither was it indifferent. It was an all-encompassing look, as if he were reading invisible data points on Alex's body, evaluating every movement, every bead of sweat. It made Alex feel exposed, laid bare before an emotionless gaze that seemed to calculate and measure everything. Alex began to feel exactly like a child taking an oral exam without knowing the questions. Every action he made, no matter how small, suddenly felt weighty. Each time he turned the lawnmower, each time he adjusted the blade, or when he picked up a stray branch, it all felt like it was being judged. He felt Mr. Harrison's gaze like an invisible laser, scanning his every motion, and he wondered what the man was thinking, how he was grading him. Mr. Harrison's silence only heightened the pressure. If he had said something, a compliment or a criticism, at least Alex would have something to react to. Instead, there was only absolute silence and an expressionless gaze, rendering all of Alex's efforts meaningless. It was as if he were performing a silent play for an unfeeling audience. Who do you think you are? The question, unspoken, was a silent roar in Alex's head, erupting like a slap to his own thoughts. It wasn't just a question for Mr. Harrison, but also for Alex himself, for the discomfort swirling within him. Who gave him the right to stand there staring? Who gave him the right to create this atmosphere? No one compelled Mr. Harrison to stand out in that scorching sun. He could have been inside, enjoying the cool air. And no one forced Alex to feel uncomfortable. He could have ignored Mr. Harrison. Yet the way he was present, his eerie silence, held a peculiar power. It made all the noise within Alex, the roar of the lawnmower, his frantic heartbeat, ragged breathing, and chaotic thoughts, suddenly feel out of place and superfluous. As if Alex were creating an annoying cacophony in a space it was supposed to be perfectly serene, perfectly flawless in Mr. Harrison's world. Alex felt angry, a simmering, unspoken anger that had no outlet. He wasn't angry because Mr. Harrison had done anything wrong. The man hadn't insulted Alex, hadn't yelled, hadn't criticized. He hadn't even made a single gesture. All he did was stand there, watching. But it was precisely because he did nothing at all, and yet still made Alex feel inferior. That was the most infuriating part. It was a sense of powerlessness, a self-consciousness amplified by a silent, judgmental demeanor. Alex hated the way he was constantly compared to an invisible standard that Mr. Harrison embodied. He hated the composure, unblemished perfection, effortless calm amidst all the struggle. He felt he was being perceived as a dirty, sweaty laborer, a stark contrast to his employer's refinement. This simmering resentment wasn't just ordinary annoyance. It was much deeper. It touched Alex's ego, the self-respect of a man working hard. It was like pouring your heart and sweat into creating art, only for someone to watch silently, their gaze questioning every brushstroke, seeing only flaws. Alex couldn't understand why he was so fixated on Mr. Harrison's presence. He should have ignored him. But Mr. Harrison's silence, his watching, was like an invisible string, binding Alex's mind. It seeped into his every thought, every movement. He started to wonder if Mr. Harrison noticed his careful work. Then, another voice in his head would retort, "Who cares? What the hell does he know?" But even as he told himself this, Mr. Harrison's gaze seemed to etch itself into Alex's mind, a silent reminder of their difference. That was what Alex hated most, the feeling of being inferior, not because of someone's actions, but because of their very presence. 3. The unnamed envy. During his brief, sparse breaks, when the engine was finally silenced, Alex unconsciously began to observe Mr. Harrison. This wasn't morbid curiosity. It was a deeper instinct. It was an inexplicable urge from someone desperately trying to find a reason, a rationalization for the feeling of defeat that was increasingly gnawing at him. Alex wanted to discover a flaw. Alex watched Mr. Harrison in moments. He appeared on the patio or through the large windows. What was striking was that Mr. Harrison didn't seem to engage in any normal activities. He had no friends visiting, no noisy parties. No music ever blared from his house. Alex had never seen him on the phone. Mr. Harrison's life seemed to unfold in an unnerving silence. What Alex most frequently saw him doing was reading. He read a lot. Stacks of books often appeared on the coffee table. Sometimes he would bring a book out to the patio. He also took notes. Alex saw him using a fountain pen, meticulously writing in a small notebook, his handwriting neat and precise. Each book seemed a world he immersed himself in. Occasionally, he would sit for hours on the patio, just watching the clouds drift by. This was the most perplexing behavior. There was no sign of impatience or boredom. He never scrolled on his phone. He just sat there, eyes following the clouds or staring into the void, sometimes looking directly at the lawn. He did nothing, literally, just pure existence. Alex couldn't understand. How could someone live like that? A life devoid of social interaction, loud pleasures, or haste. How could he not worry about anything? No bills to pay, no work pressures, no complex relationships? How could he not feel guilty for doing nothing? While Alex toiled, Mr. Harrison lived a life seemingly detached from worldly burdens. The only answer Alex could devise, A bitter comfort to his wounded ego was he must have money, lots of money. It was the only way to explain his effortless existence. Or he inherited a massive fortune, or won the lottery. There's no way a gardener like me has to suffer, while he doesn't. This hypothesis, though without proof, became a shield for Alex's self-esteem. If Mr. Harrison had money, his leisure was natural, and Alex's hardship obvious. It was a difference of class, not of ability. From initial discomfort, then to self-consciousness, this feeling had now transformed into something more toxic: envy. Envy began to seep into Alex's mind, growing with each appearance of Mr. Harrison. This envy wasn't merely wanting what Mr. Harrison had. It was also resentment at the injustice, at someone else's seemingly effortless life while he struggled. And then, this envy didn't stop there. It began to turn into anger. Alex was angry at Mr. Harrison, at the way he existed, at the ease he enjoyed. He was angry because Mr. Harrison seemed to embody everything Alex didn't have, and perhaps never would. This anger had no outlet, so it just simmered within him. And finally, anger turned into bitterness. Bitterness because Alex felt he was being left behind in a race whose rules he didn't understand. He couldn't comprehend how someone could live such a silent life, free from worries, without haste. He couldn't understand how someone could do nothing and still exude such perfection. And the most bitter part was that Alex felt he was in a battle where the opponent never showed their face, yet still left him exhausted and feeling defeated. This bitterness wasn't just about money or social status, but about a profound difference in lifestyle, in the perception of value and purpose. It made Alex feel inferior in an entire philosophy of living. 4. The lesson of appearance. One afternoon, as the intense heat began to subside, Alex inadvertently overheard a conversation. He was gathering tools near a thick hedge of bougainvillea, where sounds from Mr. Harrison's patio could drift over. Alex wasn't deliberately eavesdropping, but the words drifted into his ears, surprisingly clear and sharp. It was a woman's voice, perhaps a housekeeper, speaking to Mr. Harrison. "Mr. Harrison," her voice began, hesitant but admiring, "I always wonder how you keep your clothes so clean in this heat. You always look so impeccable, as if you've just stepped out of a magazine." Alex, who was bent over picking up a dry branch, froze. His heart gave a sharp thump. This was it. His chance to understand this man, this perfection he hated. He held his breath and listened. Mr. Harrison smiled, a smile Alex had never seen. It wasn't sneering or judgmental, but gentle, tinged with nostalgia. "Oh, that's just an old lesson from my father," he replied, his voice deep and warm. He always said that no matter your profession, no matter where you are, you should always maintain the neatest appearance possible. Alex felt a flicker of annoyance. His father? A lesson? It sounded like an excuse for arrogance. He listened, hoping for a detail that would expose pretense. He'd say, "Son, you might stumble, you might fail, you might get covered in dirt in life. But your appearance, that's the first thing people see, and sometimes it's the last thing they remember." My father was a very strict man, but also very wise. He believed that, However difficult life got, maintaining tidiness was a way to show respect for yourself and for those around you. Alex let the branch in his hand drop. Mr. Harrison's words hit him like cold water, dousing his negative thoughts. He had always assumed that crisp white shirt was a deliberate display of arrogance. But it turned out to be a lesson, a principle of life passed down. He also added, Mr. Harrison continued, his voice softening, that when you maintain your composure and tidiness, even when everything around you is falling apart, it gives you an inner strength. It reminds you that you are still in control of something, however small. He sighed gently. And it's also to show your readiness to face whatever life throws at you. A clean outfit, no matter what you're doing, is a statement. I am here, I am ready, and I respect myself. Mr. Harrison's final words resonated. I respect myself. All this time, Alex had viewed him through envy and prejudice. He had seen idleness, arrogance, social difference. He never thought that appearance hid such deep meaning, a philosophy. It wasn't about showing off, but about reminding oneself, preserving dignity, even in mundane tasks. Alex felt a wave of shame. He had been too quick to judge. He had let envy blind him, not seeing the depth in Mr. Harrison's character. His impeccable appearance wasn't an insult, but a silent lesson. One that Alex had overlooked and even hated. Now the roar of the lawnmower still lay ahead, but in Alex's head, everything had profoundly changed. 5. The slip of paper and the untaught lesson. The next morning, the birds chirped a familiar welcome, but in Alex's mind, Mr. Harrison's silence and his words about tidiness still echoed. Alex returned to work as usual, still with the heavy lawnmower and the sun beginning its climb to intense heat. However, there was a subtle shift in his attitude. He still toiled, still sweated, but the feeling of being watched and judged had lessened. It yielded to a vague curiosity about the enigmatic man. The lawn mowing concluded in the late afternoon. Alex was tired, covered in clippings and dirt, but this time he no longer felt the constant bareness. Perhaps it was due to Mr. Harrison's words, or perhaps he had overcome a part of himself. As he gathered his tools and prepared to get into his old pickup truck, an unexpected discovery awaited him. As he opened the truck door, Alex spotted a small slip of paper, neatly folded, resting squarely on the driver's seat. It lay there alone, stark against the faded upholstery. He was certain it hadn't been there when he parked. Someone had placed it there, clearly meant for him. No envelope, no name inscribed, just a plain piece of paper. Alex picked up the slip, his fingers tracing the crisp fold. He unfolded it, and before his eyes lay neat, elegant handwriting, lines that seemed eerily familiar. He instantly recognized it as Mr. Harrison's hand, identical to what he'd seen the man jotting down in his small notebook. The only words on the paper were a concise yet profound statement. Don't envy others' results if you don't understand the path they took to get there. And below, a simple initial, H. Nothing more. No further elaboration. No accompanying explanation. Just an aphorism and an initial, like a whispered message delivered through the silence. Alex stood there, holding the slip of paper for a long time. The evening light cast long shadows on his face, highlighting dried sweat and dirt. In a moment, Alex felt as though someone had seen right through the layers of dust and sweat. Seen through his calloused exterior, to perceive the heart buckling under pressure and conflicting emotions within. And then, that person didn't judge, but simply posed a question. A question that required no verbal answer, yet profoundly stirred Alex's soul. Mr. Harrison's words weren't a direct lesson or implied reprimand. They were like a sudden ray of light, illuminating a dark corner in Alex's soul, where envy, bitterness, and mistaken prejudices resided. It wasn't about telling Alex what to do, but about awakening him. Waking him from the slumber of comparison, of hasty judgments based on outward appearances. That thin, unassuming piece of paper, seemingly insignificant, carried a powerful message. It forced Alex to re-examine all his thoughts and feelings about Mr. Harrison. He had envied a result he had imagined, a life of leisure and affluence, without knowing the path Mr. Harrison had walked. The principles he upheld, and perhaps the difficulties and losses he endured to achieve that composure. Alex folded the paper, carefully slipping it into his shirt pocket. His heart still pounded, but this time not from anger or bitterness, but from a newfound realization. This lesson, from a person he despised, was the most valuable no one had ever taught him in this way. 6. The financial lesson beneath the grass. Alex sat in his pickup truck for another 10 minutes, perhaps even longer, before starting the engine. The old truck still held the familiar scent of diesel and dust, but in the cramped cabin, a subtle shift had permeated the air. The small, neatly folded slip of paper still rested quietly on Alex's lap, like a stone tablet etched with a newly discovered truth. The evening breeze wafted gently through the lowered window, carrying the distinctive smell of freshly cut grass. A scent that was intimately familiar, yet today it held a certain unusual freshness. A hint of cleanliness, no longer tainted by bitterness or envy. Alex understood. This understanding didn't come from a lengthy explanation or a heated argument. It came from a sudden moment of revelation, a blink of the mind. Mr. Harrison was not like him. This was an obvious truth, but now Alex no longer viewed it with judgment or envy. It wasn't because Mr. Harrison was luckier than Alex, or born into wealth, or had simply won the lottery by chance. It wasn't because fate unfairly favored him. It was because he had chosen a different path, a path forged long before, perhaps even before Alex was born. That path wasn't a shortcut to riches, but a path of deliberate choice, of principles, and perhaps of discipline. Alex looked back at his own life. He had never chosen anything at all. For years, Alex had simply merely run after whatever life threw at him. He worked relentlessly to make a living, to pay bills, to survive. He raced against time, against financial pressures, against societal expectations. He merely defended, day by day, fending off life's waves. Without a clear strategy or long-term direction. Alex's life had been a continuous series of reactions, devoid of proactivity or a plan. And now, a grand, heavy, yet liberating question arose in Alex's mind. Am I living by my own choices, or am I merely reacting to life? It was not an easy question, for it demanded Alex confront the stark truth about his own existence. Was he truly steering his life, or merely letting the waves carry it? It was the first time Alex hadn't hated Mr. Harrison. The bitterness, the envy, the resentment had dissipated like smoke. In its place was a newfound respect. Not just for Mr. Harrison, but also for Alex himself, for daring to acknowledge the truth. Mr. Harrison wasn't an enemy, but a mirror reflecting the importance of proactivity, of building a life on one's own terms, rather than being led by life. And it was also the first time Alex didn't just stop at cutting grass or earning money. He wanted to start learning about freedom on his own terms. Freedom here didn't mean financial freedom in the sense of having millions of dollars, but freedom from continuous reaction, freedom from the burden of envy and passivity. It was the freedom to actively shape his life, to make conscious choices. Alex didn't know Mr. Harrison's path, but he realized it might have involved smart financial management, saving, investing, or simply living a modest life, unburdened by material desires. Perhaps Mr. Harrison had worked hard for many years, accumulated wealth, and was now enjoying the fruits of his discipline and foresight. Or perhaps he had chosen a minimalist lifestyle. Whatever it was, the lesson from the slip of paper awakened Alex to a concept he had never truly considered. Financial freedom wasn't just about how much money you have, but about having the power of choice. The power to choose what you like to do, how you want to live, without being burdened by material worries. Alex started his pickup truck. The familiar rumble of the engine, but this time it wasn't the sound of fatigue, but the sound of a new beginning. The road ahead was still the same, but in Alex's mind, a new path had opened, a path of learning, of change, and of seeking financial freedom on his own terms. He would start by learning, by asking questions, and by making conscious choices, just as Mr. Harrison had long before.